There's a specific kind of moment you have lived through more than once. Something is going well, better even than you expected. The relationship is good. The work is working. The thing you had been afraid would never happen is actually happening. And then, somewhere between the next morning and the next week, you find yourself doing it. The argument that didn't need to happen. The work you didn't finish. The moment you pull away from someone for a reason you can't quite articulate. The decision you make that you know, even as you're making it, is going to cost you something. You don't decide to do it. It happens before you can stop it. And afterward, you replay it in your head trying to understand what just happened, and you can't quite explain it, even to yourself. Most people assume self-sabotage is about insecurity, or about not feeling worthy, or about deep psychological wounds that need to be processed. But the neuroscience tells a stranger story. Your brain didn't sabotage that good thing because it thought you didn't deserve it. It sabotaged it because it experienced the good thing, the success, the closeness, the stability, as a threat. And the reason why changes everything we think we know about why we destroy what we love. The story we tell ourselves about self-sabotage goes something like this. It's a self-worth problem. You don't believe you deserve good things, so you unconsciously destroy them before they can be taken away. That story is partially true, but it misses the bigger mechanism underneath it. The one that explains why even people with high self-esteem do this, why people who feel completely deserving still find themselves wrecking the good thing. The answer isn't psychological, it's physiological. Your nervous system has a baseline, a specific range of emotional and physiological activation it considers normal, familiar, safe. When you move outside that range, in either direction, your nervous system registers the deviation as instability. Anxiety pushes you above the baseline. Your nervous system tries to bring you back down. But here's the part nobody tells you. So does joy, so does success, so does sustained love. Anything that pushes you significantly outside your familiar range, even good things, gets read by your body as something to correct. This is not a flaw. It is the same homeostatic mechanism that keeps your blood pressure stable, your body temperature stable, your heart rate stable. It is doing its job, without asking what it's regulating. In 1978, two psychologists working between Princeton and Duke, Stephen Berglas and Edward Jones, ran an experiment that would put a name to something everyone does and nobody talks about. They gave participants a series of problems to solve. The first set was rigged. Half the participants got problems designed to be solvable. The other half got problems designed to be impossible, but were told everyone could solve them. And crucially, every participant, regardless of which set they got, was then told they had succeeded. Next, both groups were told they were going to take a second test. But before that test, they were offered a choice. Take a drug that would supposedly enhance their performance, or take a drug that would supposedly impair it. Here's what Berglas and Jones found. The group that had genuinely solved their problems mostly chose the performance enhancer. They wanted to do well again. That made sense. But the group that had passed the impossible test, told they'd succeeded on something they had no real way of solving, with no idea why it worked, disproportionately chose the impairing drug. Think about that. People who had won something they weren't sure they deserved voluntarily reached for an excuse to fail next time, not because they wanted to fail, because failing while impaired would protect them from the worse outcome. Discovering they hadn't deserved the first win in the first place, Berglas and Jones called it self-handicapping, and in the 40 years of research that followed, scientists found that self-handicapping is one of the most universal and most invisible behaviors in the human psychological repertoire. You stay up too late before the important presentation. You pick a fight with your partner the week before the trip you were excited about. You don't fully prepare for the thing you most want to go well. Not because you don't want it, because your brain has decided that creating an excuse to fail is safer than the possibility of failing without one. But here's where the story gets stranger. Because self-handicapping only explains half of what's happening. It explains why we set ourselves up to fail. It does not explain why we sabotage things that are already going well. That answer came from somewhere else entirely, and from a man who spent his career studying a part of your body you almost certainly take for granted. To understand why we wreck good things, we need to talk about a man named Stephen Porges and a system inside your body you have almost certainly never thought about. Porges is a behavioral neuroscientist who spent his career studying the autonomic nervous system, specifically a long branching nerve called the vagus nerve that connects your brain to nearly every major organ in your body. In 1994, Porges introduced an idea he called polyvagal theory, and in the 30 years since, his framework has become one of the most influential models in trauma therapy and stress research. Here's the core insight. Your nervous system is constantly scanning your environment for one piece of information. Is this familiar? Not is it good, not is it dangerous. Familiar. Because your nervous system was built in an evolutionary environment where familiar usually meant survivable, and unfamiliar usually meant a threat your system hadn't yet learned to handle. This works beautifully when the unfamiliar things in your life are predators or unfamiliar terrain. It works less beautifully when the unfamiliar thing is your relationship being healthier than any relationship you have ever experienced, or your career going better than any career you grew up watching, or your life being more stable than the life you grew up inside. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between unfamiliar good and unfamiliar dangerous. Both register as instability. Both trigger the impulse to return to baseline. And if your baseline includes chaos, conflict, struggle, or familiar disappointment, then sustained good gets read by your body as a deviation that needs to be corrected. You are not destroying good things because you don't deserve them. You are destroying them because your nervous system has never been calibrated to tolerate them. In 1999, psychiatrist Dan Siegel at UCLA gave this concept its clearest name: the window of tolerance. It refers to the range of emotional and physiological activation each person's nervous system has learned to tolerate. Inside the window, you can think clearly, feel your emotions, and respond to your life with full presence. Outside the window, in either direction, your nervous system shifts into protective mode: fight, flight, freeze, or shutdown. Here's the part most people don't realize. Your window of tolerance was largely shaped by the emotional and physiological environment you grew up inside. If you grew up in a household with consistent stability, your window is wide. Sustained calm feels normal. Sustained joy feels normal. If you grew up in a household with conflict, unpredictability, or emotional volatility, your window of tolerance learned to tolerate that. Stability feels foreign. Sustained good feels suspicious. The quiet moments feel wrong in a way you cannot articulate. Sustained good takes you outside your window. And outside your window, your nervous system does what it was built to do. It tries to return you to baseline, even if that means destroying the thing that took you out. So let's think about what this means for your actual life. That argument you started for no real reason, the week your relationship was at its best, that wasn't a flaw in you. That was your nervous system reaching for familiar terrain. That project you stopped working on right before the finish line, when everything was going better than you expected, that wasn't laziness. That was a system trying to bring you back to a state it had learned to tolerate. That moment you pulled away from someone who was actually showing up for you, that wasn't because you don't deserve to be loved well. That was a body trying to return to the kind of love it learned to live inside as a child. Every person who grew up inside instability is doing this. Quietly, repeatedly, without recognizing what's actually happening. It is one of the most universal and most misunderstood behaviors in the human psychological repertoire, and almost nobody knows why they do it. The window of tolerance is real, and it is widenable, but not by willpower, by repeatedly exposing the nervous system to sustained good and surviving it, by staying inside the unfamiliar comfort long enough for the body to recalibrate. In the same way a person scared of the water learns to swim by spending time in the water, you learn to tolerate sustained good by spending time inside it, by noticing your body trying to leave, and not letting it. So here is what this leaves you with. The next time something in your life is going well, really well, and you feel that quiet pull to wreck it, to pick the fight, to pull away, to find the reason this can't last, that pull isn't your truth. It's your nervous system reaching for what's familiar. The version of you that destroys the good thing isn't the real you. It's the part of you that hasn't yet learned that sustained good is survivable. And that leaves you with one of two conclusions. Either you keep returning to the baseline that has been costing you everything that has ever felt good in your life, or you stay inside the unfamiliar comfort long enough for your body to learn that good doesn't always end in catastrophe. The next time you feel the pull, ask yourself what your body is reaching for and whether it deserves to keep deciding.